G'day folks and welcome to an Oz Cyclone Chasers Cyclone video update today, the 19th of February 2015. We're doing this update from the road. My name's Chris Nitzo and this is Trav Robertson.
Yo.
And we're here today to tell you about the two tropical cyclones that are going to impact the coastline sometime tonight or tomorrow. Severe Tropical Cyclone Lam up here in the Northern Territory. As you know, I was up there in Gove for the last couple of days expecting this one to hit Gove. It has pushed a little bit further to the west and therefore I have jet-setted back over to the east here, and we're going to intercept Severe Tropical Cyclone Marcia because she's a bit more accessible than Severe Tropical Cyclone Lam. Both systems possibly reaching Cat 4 before landfall, so no preference there on intensity, so I have left a possible Cat 4 to access a more accessible Cat 4. Alright, let's get into the update. Firstly, we're going to talk about Lam for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to devote most of the time on Marcia, purely and simply because Lam is not going to affect anywhere near as many people. So it's not as if I'm preferring a Queensland system over NT. Well, it might be a little bit that case, but the fact is that Marcia is going to affect people, and this is what people want to know about. Alrighty, Severe Tropical Cyclone Lammy over here is moving. Is still a Cat 3. Still expecting by the Bureau to make it to Cat 4 before the end of its life. It is currently probably starting to undergo an eyewall replacement cycle. How it's moving slowly to the southwest here. It's going to pass dangerously close to Elcho Island. You can see here Elcho Island expecting to be in the very destructive core. Milingimbi also could be on the edge of that very destructive core as well. And the system has basically tracked southwest as it was expected to do probably a day or two ago, but it has taken a little bit longer to finally get that southwest motion happening. Eventually it's going to extend inland to the inland parts of the Northern Territory, and you can see here probably going to dump a fair bit of rain, although its translation speed, so its movement speed, will actually increase once it's inland. So you may not be under too long a period of heavy rainfall in the future. So to the folks at Elcho Island, take care. It's going to be a wild night tonight. As the bombs say here, I'm expecting a landfall sometime between around 2 to about 6 a.m, which averages out to, as the track map here shows, about 4 a.m. in the morning. There is still an error margin, so it could still move wobble a little bit further to the east, and a little bit further to the west, in fact, is the largest error margin. So there might be a slight further west wobble tonight. So Milingimbi residents, you're not out of the woods. You certainly are expecting to see at least the very edge of the very destructive core, but you might actually get a little bit closer to the system centre yet. Alrighty, looking at the latest imagery here on satellite, we can see the system tracking in this southwesterly direction. It did develop almost a clear eye there at one stage. The eye looks like it may have expanded, and if we look at that on radar, we have a situation here. The system is moving south-southwest. You can see here it's getting very, very close to Elcho Island, and at this stage, as I said, Milingimbi expecting to be on the western edge of that core. We could be seeing signs of perhaps it hasn't gone through one yet, an eyewall replacement. It is starting to show signs of a larger eye, at least in the last few images, particularly here on the southeastern quadrant. So just out here is where it's starting to exhibit signs of at least losing a bit of structure in its eye wall. Alrighty, let's get over to this sucker. This sucker here, Tropical Cyclone Marcia, has intensified rapidly, and I'll be the first to say I got it wrong here at OCC, and in fact we all got it wrong. The Bureau of Meteorology got it hopelessly wrong. We got it hopelessly wrong. The computer models all got it hopelessly wrong. This system has intensified far on top of whatever it was ever meant to do. We are now seeing a Category 3 system, and it is breaking every single rule of intensification. It has gone from Category nothing to Category 3 very quickly, and it's likely to be very close to Category 4 intensity. We probably will see it upgraded to Category 4 intensity. I think what's happening at the Bureau of Meteorology at the moment is it's guided by some guidelines, some constraints as to how quickly systems can intensify. There are these constraints that you have to abide by, and this system seems to be breaking them in terms of its structure. Its intensification is huge. We are talking about a significant system, probably the strongest system to hit the coast since Tropical Cyclone Yassi in 2011. Now at this stage it's tracking directly west-southwest, and on that track would be hitting Mackay. However, what we are expecting to see is a track a little bit further to the south. Let's zoom in on that radar image and let's have a closer look at the track. And here it is over the last few hours. You can see direct west-southwest motion here on that track. You would expect to hit at Mackay. However, what we're expecting to see here, and we are starting to see it now, is a slowing down of the system. So initially it was moving at about 20 to 30 kilometres an hour. We're certainly seeing a slowing down here, probably getting close to about 15 or so kilometres an hour. From here, we're expecting a more southwest motion. Now, the computer models are all in unanimous agreement of this. Now, that's not to say they've handled it so badly so far. That's not to say they've completely underestimated the strength of the ridge. But what's happening here is, and I'll show it to you on an upper level chart shortly, is there's a ridge extending back out here to the west. The system is now on basically the northwestern periphery of that ridge. So what will happen, and forgive the simplification here, but what will happen is this ridge will try and push the system in a west-southwest direction until it rounds to the northwest periphery. When it hits the northwest periphery of the ridge, the system's momentum will continue to try and track it this way, but what will happen is that eventually it'll start taking a more southward track. And so what we're expecting to see here is anywhere south of about Serena in with a chance of this system coming ashore. Now, at the moment, the computer models are going a little further south than that. They're going further south towards the St. Lawrence area, getting down towards Showalter Bay. This is the area that the computer models are targeting. We think it might be St. Lawrence to Camilla could be the area that we're targeting, with an option there to go north as far as Serena. But we need to see that southward motion soon, because if that southward motion doesn't happen soon, it means the ridge is building further to the west. If the ridge is building further to the west, it's not good news for places like Mackay and Serena, which will happen to be right in the firing line of the system core. Now you can see the system tightly packed here. Very good, very nice looking eye wall here. Very strong winds are going to be in that. There's also going to be some very strong winds in some of these squall lines. Now, these squall lines are only a few hours away from actually hitting the coast. Based on the fact that the system is now slowing down, we probably might not see a landfall now until tomorrow morning to around about tomorrow lunchtime. And I would be surprised if the Bureau of Meteorology don't adjust their crossing time. They have slowed the crossing time down from around about midnight or even around 11 p.m. Through to, I think now it's around 4 a.m. So let's have a look at the latest track map from the bomb just to confirm that. So we can see here the Bureau are starting to pick this time here around 5 a.m. now. So it was midnight just a few hours ago. So we can see that the Bureau have reacted to the fact that the system is slowing down. They do expect that southwest motion, but you can see the error margin here is just to the north of Serena. So they're keeping very, very cautious of the fact that it hasn't started to exhibit that southwest track yet. And if it doesn't do it soon, Mackay Serena in the firing line. So it needs to do it soon. And that's the key is going to be in the next couple of hours. If it does another couple of hours of westerly motion, yikes, we got some problems in the central coast and Whitsundays. If it does do that southerly motion, now I'm not saying it's better, because obviously the area around St. Lawrence is going to get nailed, but you know, it's a much smaller population amount here in St. Lawrence than there is in Mackay and Serena. So getting down to 945 hectopascals is what it's expected to be around landfall, 940 to 950. So that's a significant Category 4 tropical cyclone by landfall time. And as I mentioned there, landfall is sometime between midnight and the Bureau going for 5 a.m. landfall, actually. There it is, folks. That's the latest we've got there. Now, the Bureau are mentioning in their technical output here that the system is intensifying faster than the constraints allow. And so therefore, according to the constraints, this should only be a very low-end Category 3, but in fact it's a very high-end Category 3, expecting to become a Category 4 very shortly in the next few hours. And the other thing that they're talking about here is that the movement has slowed in recent hours, and the forecast is still for this to turn to occur, and so we get landfall to occur near St. Lawrence on the Queensland coast in the early hours of Friday morning. So that is still expected to happen, but they're not seeing any evidence of this yet. And you saw that on the radar image. We are not seeing that southward track that the computer models have adopted. And so this becomes a big issue for Mackay area. Now, that's not to say we're not expecting it. So let's have a look at what the computer models are saying. Before we do that, I got ahead of myself there. Let's have a look at a little bit of satellite porn. We can see here Tropical Cyclone Marcia has intensified. Look at that beautiful eye by the 5 p.m. satellite image here, you can see steady track to the southwest, but you can also see that it has slowed in the last couple of hours. So we've gone from, as I mentioned, 20 to 30 kilometre an hour system to now, moving at maybe 10 to 15 kilometres an hour to the southwest. So it means that it is now rounding that northwest periphery of the ridge. The ridge is starting to lose its influence on the system. There is an upper level trough in play over Queensland. And so that upper level trough should start to induce a southward motion. The upper ridge here is going to start to induce a southwest to south-southwest motion. And so together and combined, those systems should allow Tropical Cyclone Marcia, or should facilitate Tropical Cyclone Marcia to push a little bit further south than Mackay, which is what we're all hoping for at this stage. A Category 4 on Mackay, which has largely been unprepared. Let's be honest, Mackay was not in a cyclone warning until earlier today, until this morning. So, a lot of the residents in Mackay are probably largely unprepared for this system. So let's hope for their sake it does start to move a little bit south of the current track. Given the slowing down of the motion and the fact that it's got an outflow channel now with the upper level trough, you can't rule out a Category 5 system here, folks. So I just want to give you a heads up there. Even though the Bureau are only expecting a mid-range Cat 4, you cannot possibly rule out a Cat 5 given the current conditions. It's got about 10 knots of wind shear. Let's have a look at the current. And word on the street, in fact, no word on the street, it is actually for the fact, severe tropical cyclone Marcia has been upgraded to a 4 as I'm doing this video update, so it still continues to break all constraints. Okay, so if we look at the shear map here from the SIMS analysis, we can see around about 10 knots of shear, so that's that yellow line here, showing us that 10 knots of shear is pushing the system in this southwesterly direction. We can see the arrows that show us the direction of the shear, so really, folks, that's being offset, though, by a beautiful exhaust system. Look at this. 20 knots of exhaust, 20 knots of divergence in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So 10 knots of shear, it's got nothing on 20 knots of divergence. Now what we can see here is a very good divergent dual channel here. We've got one to the south, heaps of divergence to the south, heaps of divergence to the north. This is what cyclones need. They need those really tall, strong thunderstorms to escape at the top, otherwise they clog it all up. And it's just like plugging in your muffler and then plugging it up and then to run in your car. It just will not run for an extended period of time. This is like supercharging your car with 4 mufflers. So that's what it's doing at the moment. It's got 4 mufflers on it and it's going full steam ahead. And with the upper trough and surface trough to the south of it also, we have enhanced convergence to the south. So this is why we're saying the south side is going to pack the biggest punch. But even in the last few frames, in the last few hours, in fact, we've seen that the system has become more symmetrical. But still, if you're south of it, you're going to see the worst of the conditions. If you're south of it and now near the core. If you're north of it, you're going to see gales. You're going to see some very, very small section of very destructive winds. But overall, if you're north of it by more than about 50 kilometres, you're only going to see some gale force winds around. So if you're south of it, though, expect damaging storm force winds to be there for an extended period of time. You can see the track from the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre already is a little bit off because the system is already a little bit west of that and is not showing signs of that southwest dip yet. Now, what, as I said, we're hoping for is to see signs of that southwest dip. If we don't, we got massive problems. Latest microwave image, you can see the western edge eye wall has the strongest convection. You can see this dual outflow channel I was talking about, and you can see it very clearly here. To the south of the system, you've got an outflow channel here, and to the north of the system, you've got an outflow channel here. Perfect, perfect, perfect conditions. I can't stress the word perfect again enough. And you can see what I mean by the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre's track being already off. You can see the system is already lying about 60 or 70 kilometres further to the north. So if we look at the layer mean wind analysis, we've got that upper level high, and you can see the arrows. This is the direction that they're going to try and push the cyclone. You can see the arrows so far have been pushing the cyclone in a southwest to west, southwest direction. Now, I think the layer mean wind analysis here might be a little bit off because the system has been tracking more in a west-southwest direction rather than what it should be tracking, which is a southward direction. Now, what we can see, though, is an upper level trough over western Queensland and a resulting southward motion that's expected from that. Now, the interesting part is that the high is starting to reduce its force on the system. The upper level trough is starting to increase its force on the system, and that is why the resultant track is such a dip down to the south. So that is why the Bureau are not expecting Mackay to be in the direct path. However, we still haven't seen it happen. And this is the concerning part. It's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And this is why the Bureau are still keeping Mackay on alert, particularly for the possibility of a direct crossing, because it just simply is not doing what it is supposed to. And a lot of the time with these really fast, intensifying, strong systems, they create their own relative steering environment. So they don't follow the general laws of the fluid dynamics around them. So they tend to create, because they're such strong systems, such powerful systems, normally quite large systems, they create massive perturbations in the atmosphere which result in a strange flow or a different type of flow. And so therefore they don't follow these broad scale patterns that we expect of them. You know, when you've got a weak cyclone, you know what it's going to do most of the time, unless it's really, really weak, in which case it doesn't matter what it does. But when you've got a weak to moderate cyclone, you can really predict its path with a fair degree of accuracy. But when you start getting these stronger systems, it becomes a lot more difficult. This sort of situation is normally only an issue with Category 4 or Category 5 systems, or really, really fast intensifying 4s. But we have seen it in Category 5s. Tropical Cyclone Hamish was a great example. He defied wind shear. He created his own environment all the way down the Queensland coast a few years ago and was defying everything. Everything was going to say that he was going to weaken, but he didn't. He stayed Category 5 and then just sat there off the coast. Everything was saying that he was going to push east. He didn't. He just sat off the coast for days. So you can see how these systems can create and can alter the environment to create their own environment and their own steering mechanism. The problem is when they're this strong, you know, a slight error in track forecast can result in death, can result in huge destruction. That's the problem when they're this strong. So if we look at the GFS forecast ensemble, we can see here the system is expected to dip here to the southwest and then south-southwest, making a landfall around the St. Lawrence area. As I mentioned, still haven't seen it, but we're expecting to see it. And I showed you the steering mechanisms that are expecting to do that to the system. Looking at the experimental FIM model, we can see that very similar track expected that the Bureau of Meteorology expect, with a crossing directly over St. Lawrence at some time in the around about the 18-hour period from the model start. So that's around about the 4 a.m. mark. The NavGem is predicting a slightly stronger and sharper turn and is therefore putting the system centre along the coast and then actually making landfall around Yeppoon, which is a fair way further to the south. So if we look at the European at 7 p.m, we're expecting to see a southwest shift here. So if we don't see this southwest shift by the time you're looking at this update, then we need to start questioning the accuracy of the model. Now, the biggest thing of the model, though, is that between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. tonight, we're expecting to see, rather than a southwest shift, a direct dive to the south. And you can see here, see this 10 p.m, see this 1 a.m. Bang, direct dive to the south. Then as we go to 4 a.m, a continued dive to the south. Then as we go to 7 a.m, we see a little bit of a southwest jut. And then by 10 a.m, we can see the system has made a landfall here in the Central Coast region around Shoalwater Bay, or Shoalwater Bay. Yes, Trav's nodding his head. Shoalwater Bay in this area here. You can see at around about 10 a.m. So you can see here the European a little bit slower in landfall timeframes. The other thing to note is the Euro has not cottoned on to how fast this thing has intensified. So, with that in mind, take this track forecast with a grain of salt. Basically, if you're in the bomb warning, folks, you need to be prepared with this one because no one quite knows exactly where it's going. Now, I know the bomb have given you a best track estimate, a best track guess at this stage. But remember, the system continues to intensify faster than expected, and therefore you need to be able to expect the unexpected. So if you are in a cyclone warning tonight and tomorrow, you need to be prepared for it. It's going to get pretty bad very quickly. So it's going to go from fairly showery conditions, you know, squally occasionally, to just very hectic very quickly. That's what our experience tells us. It's not a case of it gradually gets worse. It tends to be pretty bad, extremely bad, and then gets pretty bad again. You know, so that's how it tends to go. It's not more of a gradual increase. So that's what we've found in our experience with these things. Take care tonight. Make sure you check us out on the live stream. On the live stream, We'll have 2 separate streams, one for the subscribers, one for the non-subscribers, and there'll be some perks there for the non-subscribers in that live stream. If you want to know how to be a subscriber, so folks, if you want to be a subscriber, click on subscribe to OCC, and there's some details there on how to do it. Your subscription helps us to get into more cyclones, document more cyclones, get better weather information from them, and be able to produce better weather information for you guys. So thank you very much for your support. For those of you that are already subscribers, we'll have those. We'll have that little perk of a live stream. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it tonight or first thing tomorrow. At this stage, looks like it's slowing down, so it'll be first thing tomorrow. I'm sure you're going to enjoy our little perks. You're going to be going out with us. You're going to be hearing everything we hear, everything we see. You'll be going out with us throughout the ordeal. So if we're outside in it, taking measurements, you'll be outside in it, watching us take measurements and experiencing just how bad things are. All right, folks. Thanks for watching this update. We'll talk again, hopefully tomorrow.